Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the Penny Bloom Podcast. It is I, Colton Robertson, and you are back for our journey through comic book film. This week marks a very special one to me, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, and I'm excited to be joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
Oh, what up, what up? Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you. I'm also joined by the magnificent Tavarus Pennington. What's up, homie?
Doing all right. Another doubleheader today.
Another doubleheader, tripleheader for me and Joe.
Tripleheader. Cool, yeah.
Yes, yeah, we went hard today, but and we are also joined by another guest for this project. Very happy to have him here, a new friend of the pod, Matt from Yub Cast. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I was very excited to get your message on Twitter whenever I put out the open call for this. Obviously, the Yub Cast. Tell us a little bit about your podcast and what drew you to Mask of the Phantasm as the movie of choice.
Sure. So Yub Cast is, well, as we say at the beginning of every episode, we are your Star Wars cartoon podcast, and so we're just a couple of middle-aged guys who are going back through and watching all of the animated Lucasfilm episodes, going back to the 80s, and going back to the 70s, actually, and giving them sort of a satirical view. It is a not G-rated show, but we went back through and watched all of Droids and Ewoks, which were the 1985-1986 cartoons. We watched the cartoon short from the holiday special from the 70s, and now we're going through all of the more recent animation things. So when you put the call out, and I saw that Batman, I think we can probably talk about this when we're doing the review stuff, but Batman animated series is a Warner Brothers property, obviously, and this is a movie that is in the continuity of that cartoon show that ran from 92 to 95. The writer, the lead writer of that show in this movie was Paul Dini. And Paul Dini was the writer on Droids and Ewoks with Nelvana. And so he sort of wasn't, Droids and Ewoks weren't his first work, but it was early work for him. And I like to believe that without his work with Lucasfilm, he wouldn't have been picked up by Warner Brothers, and Batman might not have happened.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow, I didn't know that. When you alluded to a Star Wars animation crossover or a Star Wars crossover with this, obviously my mind went to Mark Hamill voicing the Joker. Yeah, pretty classic there. I didn't know that about Paul Dini. That's pretty awesome. I'm always fascinated by the little bits of trivia that our guests have brought on so far. They're usually bringing more than we do to the podcast trivia wise. So I'm already digging that. But I'm glad to hear it. We're talking Batman Mask of Phantasm today. Let me lay the groundwork for the folks so everybody can get nice and acquainted. We got this movie released on Christmas of 1993. It was directed by Bruce Timm with several different sequence directors and Kevin Altieri, Boyd Kirkland, Frank Parr, and Dan Reba. And it was written by Paul Dini along with Martin Pascoe, Michael Reeves, and Alan Burnett, with characters created by Bob Kane. So, like we usually do, we'll start with our guests. Matt, how are you feeling about this movie overall?
I don't know what your guys' ages are, but I'm in my early 40s, and when this was coming out in real time in the 90s, I was like a preteen teenager, and my brother and I loved this TV show. And when I had kids, he sent my son, and he made it very clear when he did this. This is my younger brother. He sent my son, made it very clear it was a loan, not a gift, the box set to this TV show, so my kids could watch it. So this is toxic nostalgia television for me, you know. It's hard for me to not love something like this. Although that being said, watching it a couple times this week, I had multiple laugh out loud moments. Like, really, this is a kid show? Like what are you doing?
This has aged in an interesting way where, like, some of the story elements in this movie, I'm like, because I'm 22, so I'm a younger lad, and I did grow up on the Batman animated series and Justice League cartoons and Justice League Unlimited, and so Kevin Conroy has been my Batman my entire life. And this was a movie I was acquainted with at a very, very, very young age. But I'm watching it now like, ain't no way I got some of the story elements in this movie. Like, I'm watching it now like, some of this shit's kind of hard to follow. And I'm fucking 22, you know? Like, ain't no way when I was 5 was I actually like,
something just expected of kids different back then? Like, or do they just expect kids to be dumber nowadays where they just, don't just dumb it down? Like, I don't know. Or like, was it, because man, this is not really a kid's, but that's the thing though, is that like, I remember watching these movies and cartoons as a kid, like growing up. And I guess I was just more looking for the visuals and be like, oh, that's Batman on screen. And oh, that's Joker on screen. Yeah. I don't really care what's happening. I'm like, oh, look, he's throwing a punch. He's hitting a bad guy. That's all my brain's doing, I guess, when I'm like 7. So,
no, I mean, my thing is initially that perhaps in the older days, they when you're creating a cartoon, you want to make it something that everyone in the household can watch, because it's not common that you have televisions in every room. So if someone's watching something, everybody's watching it, and they got to have the high level that can keep the adults entertained while also keeping the children entertained. And if this is true, then they did it superbly, because as we've grown into adulthood, I think new layers of the show, and particularly in this movie, the storyline come to fruition.
I do think there's something to that commentary, because we would watch this together, right? Because it's 93, right? You had maybe 2 televisions and no there's no such thing as a tablet, right? You might record it and watch it later, but even that, like, you would sit around and watch it. And if you watch old cartoons like the Flintstones or something, there are jokes in there about, like, Red Flintstone being impotent. And they're buried and subtle, but they're not there for, like, the 6-year-old watching. Right?
No, 100%.
It's there because the parent is sitting there, and they want the parent to laugh too.
Right.
Yeah, we've gotten that with even the cartoons of my younger days, like SpongeBob. You know, there's every once in a while you'll catch a SpongeBob episode and you'll be like, oh wow, can't believe I didn't catch that as a youngin'. But you're a youngin', you don't think anything of it, you know. Like,
let me watch SpongeBob, I assume, for those reasons.
Yeah, probably, but. Nah, man, this one's really important to me, especially the timing of this recording. Obviously, this episode won't be out till March 10th, 2023. We're recording so far in advance. But we're recording here on November 14th, and 3 days ago, our beloved Kevin Conroy passed away, and it was man, that one hit me. I was deeply saddened by that news. It's because my entire life I fell in love with Batman at such a young age. Like the first I know I love Star Wars, and that seems to be what I'm about most of the time now. The first thing I fell in love with was Batman, and it was the Batman animated series, and the version of Batman I fell in love with was voiced by Kevin Conroy, and he man, that shit, that hurt, dude. That shit hurt me bad. We obviously do a little bit of a something here where I send out comics for us to read, if optional, but they will be touched on briefly. And the influences that I chose for this movie were Detective Comics 575 through 578, the Batman Year 2 storyline, with the Reaper heavily involved. And because Kevin Conroy sadly passed a couple days ago, I also included Finding Batman, his anthology story from the DC Pride book. And I just finished reading that like literally 30 minutes ago. And I had
Did
a
you
tough
tear
time.
up a little bit?
Yeah,
Like I read through it and I was like, oh my god, I had for one no idea of the life of Kevin Conroy at all. Like he was the first voice of Batman that I ever heard. For one, like it was through these cartoons. I don't know which cartoon or which movie it was one of them, and it was his voice. And I played the heck out of the Arkham games, and it's his voice through all of them. And it's like, that is the voice that was ingrained into my brain as Batman. And then like reading that, like, because that was written by him, which like, it seems like he kind of wrote it as if he knew, like this was happening.
No, yeah,
I don't know, but like it was. Oh my gosh, yeah, it got me to tear up a little bit reading through it.
No, yeah, it was really moving. The Life of Kevin Conroy is one that, it was a devastating read through there, but it just, the way that he related to the character so thoroughly, and the way he can put on that Bruce Wayne Batman voice, man, it's incredible. And I think that this is some of his best work, Batman Mask of the Phantasm. You know, I think especially towards the end there, when he's having that face off with Andrea Beaumont at the end. Man, whenever he's like, Andrea, please leave, please. And he has like that little break in his voice. I'm like, oh man, shit, God, oh no. That hurt me. This movie's really, really good, and it is a little bit advanced in its themes, more so than I would have caught on to when I was a youngin'. But man, and because I did watch so much of Batman animated stuff, sometimes it was hard to separate certain stuff from other things, like what was what, Mask of the Phantasm, like the Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero movie and stuff, and a lot of the Batman animated series episodes. Sometimes they all melded together over the years. But I went back and watched Mask of the Phantasm just a few years ago. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, for the first time in a while. And I was floored. Like, I remember watching it and going, oh my goodness, this is genuinely one of the better Batman movies. It's one of the best Batman movies, and I would argue it puts forth the most well done romance for Batman on screen. Far better
the most
than
Batman romance that you can get to. This is exactly how romance just goes for Batman. Man,
it turned out to be a masked vigilante who's murdering motherfuckers.
Oh, just gets left like 3 times too. Left initially, he get like proposes, leaves without warning. No, wasn't her fault necessarily, but I mean, you know, whatever. Comes back and is like, maybe we'll make things work. Never mind. I am the masked vigilante that you're actually looking for, and I'm actually not going to stop until I kill all of these people. Now that you know too, it was nuts.
Interviews with Paul about the writing style of this, or like the character motivation behind it, he said specifically, because the movie's jumping back and forth in time a lot. Every time you go to a flashback about their relationship, you're supposed to assume that it's going to work out, but every single flashback is worse than the previous one, and the consequence to their relationship is worse until the one where she flees for her life. To run from the mob, and leaves him behind entirely, only to re-emerge as the vigilante that he has to fight.
It comes through very clearly. Like at the beginning, I'm like, because something I'm not. Obviously, I've grown up with Batman. One thing I know about him is that relationships typically don't work. This gets you going in a direction where you're like, oh shit, this might work out for the lad. This might go well. And the fact that it is the spot where he proposed, that the Batman, imagery comes to him. I think that was a really, really cool, because it's so intrinsically tied. They're not, no matter how hard he tries to separate his life from the life he lives as a masked vigilante, they're always going to intersect. And he can't do shit about it unless he puts one aside.
Man, I feel bad for the criminals that night of him getting the note. You know, that he had to have not been pulling the punches a little. He had to been putting a little extra oomph behind those that night. But man, no, it was really cool to see the back and forth and like the slow creation of the suit. And then, like, you get the payoff of, like, seeing Alfred look at it for the first time. He's like, oh my God, you turned around and I didn't expect, you know, or I don't know, it was really funny, but another constant in the Batman movies, just Alfred.
Alfred, another real ass motherfucker in this movie, man. Alfred is always a good dude, and always trying to get Bruce laid. It's kind of hilarious.
Always walks in at the perfect time, too, and then just does his little,
Oh, yeah. You couldn't ask.
Go back in the kitchen or whatever.
You couldn't ask for a better wingman, except for in Batman '89, whenever he's like, I might go ahead and bring this woman into the Batcave for no apparent reason. Kind of crazy, kind of out of pocket, but
in general, though, I think that Batman: Mask of the Phantasm has such a good opportunity at being regarded as the classic that it is, because it really helps form the archetypal, like, understanding of Batman. Like, it's able to work within what it is now archetype of the stereotypical portrayal of the character. Because Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, and the Batman the Animated Series are doing such a good job at establishing and introducing the character that now everyone's trying to essentially scrounge for a origin story as good, if not better.
No, this is 100% the best understanding of the character any movie or show has had. I think the Batman Animated Series and Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Basically, this version of Batman, as voiced by Kevin Conroy. I don't know, he's voiced plenty of versions of the character, but this also benefits from the fact that, you know, the animated series doesn't attempt to retell any sort of origin. This is his origin. It is like canon to that story. So it's not only just a great standalone movie, it's a fantastic tie-in to one of the greatest comic book shows of all time. And I just absolutely love watching it for that reason.
Yeah.
Can we back up to what Rager was talking about with the flashback real quick about Alfred seeing the costume for the first time?
Absolutely.
There was a thought for a while that's also been written about for an episode of the animated series called Vigil, which would have been a sequel to the flashback portions of this movie, produced in the cartoon series. And that's where Alfred tries to push back against Bruce actually becoming Batman. And you can find the script for it online if you poke around. But in Vigil, Alfred threatens to leave Bruce if he becomes Batman, and then ends up having to save Batman on an early skirmish with some gang members. And he prevents Bruce from killing one of them, and sort of establishing the ethics of the Batman character in this continuity. So I recommend if you're a big Batman fan, go find the script for Vigil and read it.
I'll have to. That sounds fucking good. Especially like the story elements you're laying out there for me. You kind of get some notes of it here in the like the last scene between Alfred and Bruce, which is personally my favorite scene of the movie. We like to look for favorites, favorite character, performance, scenes, lines, shots. That scene between Alfred and Bruce at the end is probably my favorite. That part where he's like, vengeance is all consuming, and I was worried that it would one day consume you. It blackens the soul. I always feared that you would become that which you fought against. You walk the edge of that abyss every night, but you haven't fallen in, and I thank heaven for that. Like, that's just such a classic Alfred sentiment. It's such a defining element to how we perceive these characters, and like this is how I want these characters to interact. And obviously I know there will be conflict and stories between them, but I want Alfred to have an understanding of Bruce and a concern for Bruce and his well-being in a way that he ultimately trusts him, but he's worried about him, like a father, like he's like, I view you as someone I need to protect, even though you protect everyone, like that's your goal, but I have to protect you.
I really appreciate the concept of the Vigil story, the Vigil arc, because it seems like that would help establish some of the stakes to that relationship as well. Because there are plenty of moments, I think, where at Batman's best, when you're reading or watching a story of Batman's, you are most invested when Alfred is on the line. Alfred is implicated somehow, or Batman and Alfred's relationship is somehow implicated. I think that their dynamic is crucial to telling the Batman story in a way that's...
In the most recent Batman movie, whenever it's Andy Serkis's Alfred who gets put on the line, like that moment where he's racing home and he's like, Alfred, like I've like that's one of the most intense moments in that movie, and it's it really is that relationship that a lot of great Batman stories depend on, like I think that here in a couple weeks we'll talk Batman and Robin, and I think that without the Alfred storyline, that movie loses a lot of heart. It's just he's just such a beating heart of the Bat family, and in all stories and all variations in all comics and everything. He's such a dependable figure, and I think that this movie really, really beats that home for you. It's a
man. I said that from every Batman movie, no matter what, I was on the Alfred train for putting him as my favorite character, because Alfred is this steady constant in the Batman universe that is just a gem. But I can't put Alfred for this movie. Not just because of Kevin Conroy, but this is literally like a Batman origin and a regular Batman movie in one. And I can't just pass up the character development that Batman and Bruce Wayne see in this movie and not say that he's the best character in the movie.
I'm with you. Kevin Conroy as Bruce Wayne Batman is not only my favorite character in this movie, but also my favorite performance. If Kevin Conroy wasn't bringing the heat he does as Batman, I'd be tempted to go Andrea Beaumont for a favorite character. She's kind of I like the complex nature she brings to the table. I think that her motivations and stuff are clear as day, and like it's really rewarding on rewatches to view Andrea Beaumont in that light. And because there's that scene where Bruce comes by her place as Batman, and they like have that little back and forth where she's like, "Oh, they're the only person here being controlled by their parents is you," and I was like, "Oh shit!" And then when he leaves, she breaks down crying because she's living the same life, like she, I mean, a little different. She killing and shit, but like, they live in the same life. And
right.
I absolutely love that dichotomy that they strike in this movie.
So I picked Andrea over Bruce in this movie for my favorite character because of that line, because of that scene. Being controlled by your parents is such a beautiful, and then her breaking down and crying. It's like we're saying, it's too layered for a TV show for 10-year-olds, because that line is the whole game. She is acting out the vengeance of her parents, and she's throwing it back in his face. It's sort of like when your college girlfriend cheats on you and she accuses you of invading her privacy. It's like,
right.
Well, like
gaslighting the hell out of my boy.
Right. Like let's put all the cards on the table, right? Yeah. And the reality of that scene is, it's like she's like you're the one that's behaving poorly. It's like, no, you're the one that's completely out of control here, not him. I think Batman is such a better character than the Phantasm, but I think Andrea walks all over Bruce in this movie, and it's just so wonderfully acted.
It really is.
I guess as a first-time viewing, I did not see this twist. Like, this is the first time that I've seen this before as a smooth-brained child, but like as with a somewhat functioning memory, like this is my first watch. I did not expect it to be her at all. whatsoever.
It's a good twist.
Yeah, and so I mean, now that like looking back on it, I think like her I don't know if I could still put it up to like how I liked Bruce's and Batman's character development here, because that's I guess what I was focusing more on this watch, because I didn't know that it was her ultimately, but now going back and watching it again, knowing it's her is going to be really cool.
They do a wonderful job of foreshadowing. Not only that conversation, but when her and Bruce are fighting, she does a throw that the Phantasm does on Batman later.
Oh.
And like the fighting styles are the same. And the other thing that I had forgotten about when I watched this movie earlier this week is that the Joker figured it out so easily. And I love that detail too.
I did too. I
just love it when he says like little lady or whatever he says to her, and she takes the mask off, and
he's like, you figured it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, that shit was. Another thing I really liked about this movie is that they treated Andrea Beaumont like she had an ounce of intelligence. Like whenever she sees Batman standing by the Wayne grave, you know, in a lesser movie where they're not trying to let the love interest figure out that the person is the hero. Oh my goodness. You know, like she's immediately like, Bruce, you know, like
the
she's
stereotypical scene would have just gone like, they would have looked at the gravestone and been, what a coincidence. They would have thought nothing of it, you know, but like, to actually
they treated Andrea Beaumont with some fucking respect. You know, they were like, she's got some intelligence on her. She looked at that and was like, oh, that conversation I had with him all these years ago in this very spot. He made a vow to his parents, a secret vow. Oh, a mystery man. You know, like she can put things together. It's not like it's kind of how I wish they would treat Lois Lane a little bit in those like early Superman movies where like, and obviously she does figure it out. Clark's a little bit good at hiding it. But like just in the later movies specifically, it's like, man, y'all treating Lois bad here. Like it's not going well. But I did really like the way they treated Andrea Beaumont's character in this movie. And
I'd say in general, that's a good thing about Batman is while he has a secret identity, when they explore relationships with Batman, and lying to the woman about who he really is never really a huge plot point. When not to shit on Superman, when early Superman, that is the 100% of the premise of his relationship with everybody is that I have to lie to everybody all the time about everything. Yeah. I don't even need these damn glasses, sort of thing. You know, and Batman definitely has a facade, but when they pursue a relationship with that character, the other members of that relationship find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I always didn't like the kiss that just wipes Lois Lane's memory of everything. Like it was always just such like a weak, like lazy, just story writing technique. Like I was like, oh my god! Like at first, I didn't even realize that that's what happened at the end of the first movie. And then Colton was like, brought it to my attention. I'm like, wait a minute. No.
It's like a roofie kiss.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. No way. And then they just do it repeatedly over and over again. I'm like, wow, that's just bad. That's just like, he's like, I need some counsel. Let me go talk to Lois. Let me bring her all through the whole whoop-de-doo date again. And then let me just kiss her to make it all go away again. Oh, how it sucks to be Superman. You know, I'll never love anybody. So, but yeah, no, this was,
goofy movies over there, man. But the first one's really, really good. I will say, I think thus far we've covered Batman 66, Batman 89, and Batman Returns. I do think this is my favorite of those movies so far. I think this is my favorite iteration of Batman so far. I think it's my favorite Batsuit. I think it's my favorite Joker character design. I think it's my favorite Joker. Like it's so far, this has an upper hand on pretty much every other Batman movie in almost every regard up to this point, in my opinion. And it's an extremely rewarding watch, and it coming in at an hour and 15 minutes is fucking huge.
Yeah,
I love a short movie, man.
They really did something, and I mean, I bet it has to do with the fact that these writers are interested in a television character. Like the way that they're able to write that story is always going to be easier than trying to be like, introduce the character and do all of this other stuff. Like there's still some basic audience. But the animated series itself sticks out to me because, like, 20 minutes an episode. Like, are you serious? Like, the depth of those things is insane.
That's what's crazy is this movie feels so much longer than an hour and 15 minutes because when I watch Batman the animated series, the 20-minute episodes feel long as fuck. So the fact that
I was gonna ask that. I was wondering if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's a very good thing because usually whenever you have a really long movie, you're like, wow, that didn't even feel like 3 hours. That only felt like 2 hours and a little bit. I was so into it. But I think this time it's like it's only an hour and 15, but I'm so invested in it that man, it might have been 2 hours that I was sitting there. Like I felt that it could have, like, it was that much content, but just in such a small amount of time. So it's like, I don't know. It was very short, but didn't lack anything because of it.
Right.
Yeah, I paused it and had to go help my kids with something. I was watching it earlier today, and I paused it and realized I had only 20 minutes left. And I sat down and I watched it, and I was like, I thought I only had 20 minutes left. That last 30 minutes, there's a lot.
There's a lot. There is so much. I did a pretty similar thing just a little bit ago on my second viewing before this podcast. I was like, I took a break to go like eat, and I paused it, and I was like, holy shit, I still have 30 minutes left in this movie. And then I pressed play, and I felt like I sat down for another fucking hour. And see, like, that's the thing. When a movie is an hour and 15 minutes, and it feels a little longer than that, I don't think it's a bad thing. When a movie is 2 hours and it feels longer than that, now we're getting into a territory where I'm like, all right, y'all probably didn't do what you were supposed to do here. There's kind of a balance there where, like, a really long movie can feel short, a really short movie can feel long. But if you're in the middle and you're feeling one or the other, you're probably not doing exactly what you were supposed to do. And this movie just succeeds for me, man. It really does. If I was going to branch this into a favorite shot, what are some of your guys' favorite visuals from this movie?
I know it's the sort of the style of Batman, the animated series in general, sort of this Art Deco 20s sensibility. So when he and the Joker were fighting in the scaled down cityscape, there's a lot of King Kong shots that are just straight out of the original King Kong. And it's hard to not get excited when something that's already playing with genre plays with genre. Right? It's like let's turn this into a monster fight. Right? Yeah. So it might as well have been like a Godzilla movie at that point for that, like,
when those when the little drones come through and they slice up at Bruce and stuff. I loved that shit. But I also loved it, like, that not only is that like, we're going to play with it like it's a monster movie for a little bit, but also it's like the visual of Batman and Joker fighting each other and destroying a lot of Gotham in the process. I thought that was kind of interesting to show that, like, just how much damage these two can do if they keep coming after each other. And
I like that shot particularly as well because it really embraces the noir-esque tone of the series in general, and I think it's sort of this like almost ancient battle of forces, like happening. That's
mythological.
Yeah, and it's being cast through these characters, but it's something that precedes and exceeds them.
And I can't remember who the Joker's with, but it's with whoever he takes on the roller coaster at first and brings him up to his living room and like
Venestra. I think is his name. He's
it's just he has a moment where he's like talking to him and it's like, okay, but then he's like, okay, now I'm going to kill this kid. Like I'm now it's over, but like the screen flashes red and it just zooms into the Joker's face. Everything else is red. And then he just goes on into his sick, twisted, like, I just want to see you smile or whatever. And then like kills him and puts him back in the chair, whatever. That was, I think, like, it was just a really cool use of a shot that you can't really do in a live action movie, but works so well in a movie like this, where it's like that's why animated movies like are so like if done well can be so much cooler because there's so much that you can do that you can't do with a real camera. Like think of a movie like Into the Spider-Verse. A lot of the reason we love that movie is because it's so unique and so many cool things are happening on screen that give it so much character and its own sense of style. And this way you get that exact same thing, but it's just dark and edgy and way.
Well, Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to say this is the central hypothesis of my podcast when we review Star Wars cartoons, is that when you have a fantastic universe, you can get away with so much more in animation than you can even in like an FX heavy movie or show like Star Wars has. The cartoons are head and shoulders more fantastic, more interesting, and better shot than any movie or TV show, live action TV show.
100%. The thing I've always pointed to specifically in Star Wars animation as an achievement of something you can do in animation that you can't do in live action is Ahsoka, specifically Ahsoka's fighting style. The way that she goes about doing things, it's going to be hard for Rosario Dawson and the VFX team to make shit like that look believable when it comes to the Ahsoka series. But the Clone Wars and Rebels, hey man, she can do whatever the fuck she wants. It's
Could you imagine trying to replicate Ahsoka versus Maul in real life? Having someone like Ray Park. I guess Ray Park could do Ray Park stuff, but like having someone to have to do Ahsoka aside that as well would be like near impossible. And especially on the rafters of Mandalore, or like like you can't do that in real life. You just can't do certain things like that. And I don't know. That's why I chose that for my favorite shot. For this is just because more of like it's not on its own a freeze frame that's like, oh my god, look at this, but it's just kind of like the usefulness of it in a scene.
I dig it. Yeah, and another fun fact about Sal Valestra, the character, he's played by Abe Vigoda, who, if you're a fan of the Godfather movies, he was Sal Tessio in those movies. Tessio, he's the one who approaches Michael at the end of the movie with the proposition that Marlon Brando warned him about. If somebody approaches you and asks you to meet with them, hey, that's the one you need to look out for. It's this guy. It's the guy who plays Sal Valestra.
Wow.
So I thought that was a cool little crossover, and we also had our first crossover within Project for a movie that was not a direct sequel or a different, like, Batman and Batman Returns obviously had a lot of crossover because it's a direct sequel to Superman movies, of course. But Hart Bachner voiced Arthur Reeves, the council member, and he was knockoff Tom Cruise, as you dubbed him, in Supergirl.
Yes! Oh my god, I'm looking at IMDb. That is insane. Wow. What the first crossover goes to knock off Tom Cruise, dude. From the worst movie on the list, too. Like, wow. But that's okay. It's beautiful. I'm okay with it.
He put on a pretty good performance, too, when he was sitting in that hospital bed after Joker had Joker-fied him. And he
you know what? Fair enough. That it's definitely way better than his... I don't know what to categorize that performance in Supergirl as. His confused hunk. The confused hot guy in the movie. That for some reason the villain needed to succeed in her villainous ways for whatever reason. But no, here, this is way better. I appreciate his performance here a lot more.
This once again ages me, but Supergirl was one of the first movies I saw a bra in. So,
oh wow,
yes.
Wow,
yes, fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the lowest rated movie on our list so far.
It's rough. I haven't seen it in like 30 years.
Yeah, I don't think I will see it in probably in about that long. That's how long it'll take me to get back around to it.
Yeah,
if I do in the first place. But yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, it was an interesting viewing, to be sure. But to build on the favorite shots, I'm gonna go with just one that was just so beautifully stylized. My gut wanted to go with the classic shot of the silhouetted Batman about to put on the mask for the first time. He's holding it in his hands. He's looking down at it. He's silhouetted with the light shining over his back. I love the way that looks. but I think I am going to go with Batman approaching the Wayne grave after Phantasm is committed to murders and he's going to investigate. There's just like when the bat ears go over the shadow of him goes over the Wayne name and stuff. Like, oof, I love the way that looks, man. It's a gorgeous shot, and the way this animation is stylized, it works so perfectly. And I like the way it evolves a little bit, like the more on close-ups you are. Like another one of my favorite shots was when he's looking through the binoculars at Andrea and Arthur at their dinner date, and it like zooms in on his eyes, and then you can see in the lenses what looks more like the title cards from the Batman animated series and sort of that style. And I really, really, really liked that. That was another really cool shot. But yeah, this movie visually is just it's fucking brilliant. Another one of my favorite shots from that sequence Matt chose earlier was when Joker had the building over his face, and he was just kind of like following him around, and he was like looking at him through the windows and stuff. Like, God, man, this movie's just fun to look at, and it's a fun watch, and because of that, I know that's why I liked it when I was a little kid. There's just so much more reason to like it now. Now that I have a little bit more critical thought ability.
Yeah. Yeah, I
What
think
about you? You got a favorite shot? You hear me?
Wait, who?
You.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm gonna go with the shot we were talking about earlier of I'm blanking it. It's one I'm blanking as it's coming back to me. Well, we were just talking about it.
The monster sequence. I forgot about that.
Yes,
you agreed
monster.
with that. I forgot about that. My bad, homie. My bad. No, I feel you. But yeah, how do we got any more favorites to hand out? What do we got to go over?
I guess the line. I think we've given everything but our line. And my line, I had to give Alfred something, and that's where I gave him my line. And it was just I was about to go with the Vengeance, the one at like the end, like the whole wrap up one, but I knew someone was bound to either give that the scene or the line themselves. So I wanted to give like a funny Alfred line. And it was just the one where he was basically calling him hard-headed. And, he said, like, there are certain advantages to having a sturdy cranium, Master Bruce, but then hard-headedness was always your virtue. As he's, like, patching him up or whatever. I just wanted to give some quirky Alfred line in there just to give that side of him, because he had a lot of just funny little one-liners, that Alfred always has. And he comes in for that one little second and then enters and leaves, and I don't know. I just love Alfred had to give him something for it. So,
and I also loved when Andrea was like approaching in the while he was practicing the jujitsu out in the yard, and he's like, "Sir, you might want to conclude the shop talk, as it were." It's just classic Alfred shit. But Matt, you got a favorite line?
I was going to follow up again on what he was saying about the hard-headed line. Paul Dina later wrote a story called Dark Knight, a True Batman story about an assault he suffered, a mugging where he was robbed and hit over the head with a club and fractured his skull, and he had to have reconstructive surgery. And it was while he was writing this, it was while he was working on Batman and writing this particular script, and the head injuries that Batman receives is because of the head injuries he received. And that line comes... It's a perfect Alfred line, right? Because it's funny enough,
Yeah.
But it's actually... It comes from his real life experience, and so he wrote a short story about his own autobiographical story about his own experience with this, and he actually almost quit because his injuries were so bad. He was thinking about quitting, and people talked him out of it. And he goes over all of this in the story, but that I just wanted to bring that back to sort of the reality that the head injuries that Batman suffers is from Hall's particular story at the time.
Full of the tidbits and trivia, Matt. I'm fucking with it. I love it.
Doesn't that come from? I'm trying to think of whenever he got the head injury in the movie. Was that like after the biker gang was trying to steal that money box from the one guy, and then Bruce was like, "I'll step in and do
that's
it."
That's part
or...
of a flashback. It's a little. I think.
It was later when he gets dressed up and is like, "Spread or get on the floor" or whatever. Is it like from his first?
The head injury.
Andrea
the head injury
right
is
there.
from when he gets blown up in the construction site.
Yeah, yeah. It's right after he has to do the whole escape montage where he ripped off the cowl and cape, and another really cool imagery that we just don't see a lot of is Bruce Wayne out and about, hiding from the cops without his mask on, but his full Batman uniform on. Like I thought that was just cool shit to see. Anytime a superhero movie pits the cops against the hero, I think it always adds a degree of intensity, and I mean, I'm going to enjoy it a little bit more because it just furthers that like they're working outside the law, and you know, even when they are being a hero, they can be persecuted as a villain and stuff. Like I think that's some really cool shit, and I think this movie plays with that really effectively, especially coming off of the influences for this movie, that Batman Year 2 story. It's an interesting one where I'm not a huge fan of the way Batman's written in it. He's a little bit more quick to go for a gun in that one, which is not how I like Batman to go about things, and a little bit more open to the idea of potentially committing murder. Which again, not the way I like Batman to go about things. And I like that there's a part of this movie whenever everyone's doubting Batman in in someone's office. I think it's Jim Gordon's, and Jim Gordon's like, "Hey man, I know Batman's not doing this. Batman doesn't kill people. Y'all do whatever the fuck you want. I will have no part of it." I absolutely loved that because again, Jim Gordon hasn't really been a present character in any of the movies we've covered besides Batman 66, and even then he was like hardly there. This was the most Jim Gordon we see Jim Gordon be, you know, as opposed to Batman and Batman Returns. I feel like this is just like this movie just has such a great understanding of who all the characters around Batman are too. And
is Gordon in Batman 66 an Irish stereotype?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I believe.
I can't remember that movie very well.
No, and it's one that's probably not the most worth remembering. It's a fun one, but it's like you know. Is
that the throw down the shark repellent movie?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, throw down the shark repellent. It's you know, they get everybody in the this Council of Nations speaking different languages, and Adam West decides that is the greatest service they've ever done for humanity, was getting everybody to speak from each other's language. And it was like, okay.
Getting world leaders to do their job was the greatest thing that Batman has ever done for the world. Getting them to speak to each other in one room for a couple seconds was enough to get it done. That's all they needed.
We still don't understand.
I have a disturbingly clear memory of Batman 66, and I wonder if it's because it's more like a fever dream than an actual movie.
The movie is pretty much a fever dream, honestly. That's pretty much what it is.
No, yeah, and what's funny is that those two are the Batman I grew up on, Kevin Conroy and Adam West. I grew up on a lot of Adam West, the show and the 66 movie. I remember having the little DVD of it and watching it quite frequently. I loved the fucking bomb sequence where he's running around with the bomb.
The movie was shot very beautifully, but
it's a classic. It's a classic. But not. I'm sorry, Matt. We never got to what I thought might be what we thought might be your favorite line. Did you have one picked out for that?
Was it the head one? Because you said you were playing off of it. I didn't know if you wanted to select it or if you.
No, my favorite line was the "only one of us is being controlled by our parents" line.
Oh, that's right.
And that's how that also made me pick Andrea as my favorite character. That line is perfect. It's perfect writing, in my opinion, right? It's perfect amount of foreshadowing. It's perfect amount of just spite in the way that only someone that loves you can hurt you, right? And it's delivered perfectly. So
couldn't have said it better myself. It's 100% true. I think my favorite line in this movie is a pretty classic one from Bruce Wayne there, standing over or kneeling over his parents' grave there when he says, "Please, I need it to be different now. I know I made a promise, but I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy." I really, really love that line as a culmination of what Bruce has been about up to that point and what we know he becomes after. It becomes a sad line in that moment because it's not different. It doesn't change, it ultimately becomes the same. But then Andrea pulling up right behind him after that, being like, maybe it is okay. Maybe they sent me. I thought that was it's a little corny, but I love shit like that. I love shit like that. I think it's adorable. And, it's just a really heartfelt imagery that I don't think, I want more Bruce Wayne being really, really vulnerable. I think that always goes over well for me. And I think this was, again, one of the best examples of Kevin Conroy voice acting his ass off. I think the visuals were outstanding. And I think the writing was just immaculate here. It's something that went really well for me. And, it was between, I could kind of flip this scene with the line Alfred says and the other scene I chose for my favorite scene, and it would be like either or would work perfectly. This whole scene is really fantastic too because I only delivered the back half of the line, but when he first gets there and he's like, please, like, I'm so sorry. I need it to be different. Like, it's so well done. And I really, really enjoy it. But Tavarus, how about you? You got a favorite line for us?
I mean, I think I like the Alfred's line. Alfred takes best character for me. Well, I think best performance to Kevin Conroy, but in terms of line, I think Alfred, as always, is spot on when he is talking about Bruce's vengeance turning him black, essentially, and him being able to walk the line while not falling in. I thought that speaks more to just that scene in that moment, but it speaks to the character itself, which is a little bit of how I think Alfred is often posited in a Batman narrative, which is sort of as the narrative voice itself, as this element of the show or of the story that's tying the viewer into the universe as much as it's tying the universe together itself. By conceptual, or crystallizing that comment. Not only is he giving Bruce this tidbit that is superbly true, but he's speaking to the viewer, I think, and trying to give you clues as to where you need to be looking at the Batman character. So I thought that was just a really, really well put, quintessential line.
Yeah, I love that line for all the same reasons. It was it's just everything you want that dynamic to be as well. Between Alfred and Batman, and it really is perfect. But man, Joe, does that leave us with any last favorites to give out? Or are we kind of covered?
I guess for Matt, did you want your performance to go to Dana Delaney for Adriana Beaumont as well, or just for the character?
No, I'll do Batman for the performance.
Okay.
Like when we got the news Conroy died, I texted Corey or sent a message through Twitter and just said like, oh, can we talk about this?
Yeah.
And like I said, he's my Batman too. Like I grew up with like Keaton as Batman and Clooney as Batman and that stuff. Like I saw all of those movies in the theater when they came out. But this was appointment TV for me as a kid. It's like we always knew when it was on. We always watched it, and And I was talking with the other host of my podcast, Yub Cast. His name's Jamie. And I was like, this show is up there for me with Gargoyles for like 90s cartoons. It's incredibly good, and like he deserves all the praise he's getting right now, and it's a shame that he died so young. 66 is young. I'm in the medical field. 66 is young. So
absolutely. Yeah, that was heartbreaking. Because I hadn't been keeping up with any of the news around him. It was so sudden. Like I didn't know he was going through a short battle. I didn't know he was having a battle with cancer or anything. I just looked at me and Joseph were actually recording a little thing for the Patreon. And I looked down at my phone for a second, and one of my notifications was Batman animated series actor Kevin Conroy has passed away at age 66. And I immediately, I was talking to Joe, and I went, oh, fuck. I had a tough time just holding it together in that moment. That night I watched Mask of Phantasm. I watched a bunch of Batman the Animated Series. I was like, I can't think of anything else to do. I wouldn't want to watch anything else tonight. It wouldn't have felt right. And he deserved all the flowers he's getting. He's absolutely fantastic role model for so many people, and a fantastic talent that meant so much to so many.
Yeah, celebrity deaths don't usually impact me very much. Carrie Fisher dying hit me really hard because I'm a kid from the 80s, right? And just love Star Wars, obviously. And then Conroy was the other one, and I just thought it was like such a weird coincidence.
It was crazy timing.
It's like I'm for the first time in years going back to this material, literally this week, and I looked down at my phone and it says Batman actor died, and I opened up the story and I was like, oh shit! It's
somehow our
Batman.
Yeah. So we have a lot of weird coincidences that line up with our podcast for some reason. And sometimes it's bad and it lines up with some deaths. Other times we start a movie revolution and it turns out that movie starts gaining hype out of nowhere, and we catch up. It's so strange, the patterns that we have here. But
our Goodfellas episode came out 6 days before Ray Liotta died. And it was like, yo, what the fuck? No.
We recorded Avatar whenever they announced Avatar 2, and then it's slotted to release the week after the movie actually releases or something. It's something crazy like that. I don't know, there's a lot of just really strange.
And these coincidences will happen when we record as much as we do. We tend to to get on the recordings quite a bit, but yeah, this one hurt, man. I didn't think that I'd be eulogizing Kevin Conroy at all when we were coming here to talk about Mask of Phantasm. That was something I was just not looking forward to and didn't think I would have to do. And man, it really sucks. It really sucks that that's something that we're doing today. But he deserves all the flowers he's getting. Kevin Conroy, absolutely a fantastic talent, and I have no doubt he was my favorite performance. Is that kind of a clean sweep across the board for favorite performance?
It was indeed a clean sweep. Me and you gave him the character, and then would just be Alfred, and luckily Alfred got a character nod somewhere in there from Tavarus, so that's good. Then he'll get
a favorite character nod every Batman movie.
So that's good. At least we got the constant covered. So my theory still holds true. So it's okay. Yeah, I think we got everything covered now. All that's left to do is slap a rating on it now.
Well, right. I do. Just for honorable mention, I do think that the fact that this is sort of billed as Mask of Phantasm, and you think that's the villain, and it is, but it turns into a Joker episode or a Joker movie, and Mark Hamill's performance as the Joker. Not to constantly talk about Star Wars stuff, but Mark Hamill's performance as the Joker is perfect. He is the best Joker. Sorry.
No doubt.
Heath is probably the second best Joker. But
no, I can't. Yeah, because we cross over into Star Wars all the time for pretty much anything. If it's applicable, we'll cross over into Star Wars anytime. And if Mark Hamill's involved, man, how do you not mention Star Wars? But yeah, his Joker is fucking fantastic. Every time I'm listening to his performance of the Joker, be it in the animated series or in the Arkham games, he knows how to voice that character.
He's
Whenever
twisted. He actually like gets twisted himself. Like he contorts his body, and like him in the booth, it's crazy. Just like actually seeing him do it. That's the thing, is that like a lot of people would be like, well, Heath Ledger has to do on camera and the voice at the same time, but like Mark Hamill's doing it all the same. Like you could film it and put it on a green screen, and damn, you have just as good of a performance. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to pick a favorite. When I hear when I hear the Joker, I hear Mark Hamill, but when I see the Joker, I see Heath Ledger. So it's really hard for me to pick a favorite between the two. But no, it's crazy that it's such just like a part of the movie that we kind of just threw off to the side, and that's like, that's a part of this movie that is kind of cool. We have the Joker in here, and he's one of the greatest Jokers of all time, and we get that for a little bit.
No, yeah, man.
So.
I do love the way that it does kind of shift focus there at the end whenever Batman does tell Andrea, like, please go, I got business to attend to, and then he's like, you Batsy, that shit's fantastic. I love that shit. And there's that part where he's talking to Arthur, and he's like, gulp, gasp. Like that whole thing. He's just got that personality, that cadence down so perfectly. It really is a fantastic performance.
Last piece of Star Wars trivia: when the Stepford wife robot assassin thing dies, the sound effect is the Millennium Falcon failing to initiate its hyperdrive.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that, because like when he comes out and like shoots all the robots that are like dancing and singing that song, you hear the
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, they're using that song. They're using that sound for the animatronics in the park.
That's awesome.
Fuck yes, I'm so glad you pointed that out. I completely forgot about it. That's so good. Always going to bring it back to Star Wars here on the Penny Bloom Pod. We always are. It's where the heart lies. It's where the heart lies. But I do believe that will bring us to the rating section of the podcast. And Matt, I know I sent you the document that kind of breaks down how we do the rating, but something I didn't include in that is that we typically allow our guest to do their own rating outside of what me and Joe and Tavarus end up coming to, because we've become sort of one mind on a lot of things. And a good example was last week with our guest, or a couple weeks ago with our guest Blaine from DCU on Repeat. He was a lot nicer to the movie than we were, and it's just because he only had to rate that one movie, whereas we were comparing it to a few of our other movies, a few of our other viewing experiences, and it just gets a little complicated whenever you're crossing wires with someone who hasn't done every single one of these movies. So we're going to start with enjoyment. After that, we'll go to genre. And Matt, if you're familiar enough with the comic books, as I've followed your Twitter for a while now, I know you're really into Star Wars comics, but I don't know about much beyond that. And then the critical rating, we take the average of those, becomes our overall rating, and we'll ask you to do. I'll keep track of your score alongside the rest of our ratings. So as far as enjoyment is concerned, that's where we'll start. Matt, how are you rating this out of 10?
Well, based on the descriptions for the enjoyment, I'm right at an 8. I love it. I really do. There's things that, if we're allowed to criticize it, there's things about it that I think are interesting for the time period it was made, that sort of, like I said in the beginning, like sort of took me out of it for a second. There's a guy that worked on this as a producer, or a producer-director. His name is Eric Radomski, and he's really known for Scooby-Doo. And there's times in this movie where it looks like shots from a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
That's honestly true. Like, whenever it's in the graveyard and the smoke puffs, like, oh, it's totally true. Wow, I didn't even think. It's everywhere. It's the group. Scooby-Doo is
the greatest
just
movie of all time. Scooby-Doo.
It can't be beaten. It can't.
It can't. It's
the true inspiration of all things.
From Scooby-Doo, all things are born.
Including this.
Including this. Nothing is excluded. Every single thing.
The other piece of criticism I'll give this movie, I know it's fantastic realism. That's sort of Batman's willing suspension of disbelief. But once you find out that she's the Mask, she transports around the scenes through puffs of smoke, and it's not really explained. It almost feels like she has a magical power.
Yeah, she does that thing where she like pushes her hand out and it like comes out of her hand, but it's like, where the fuck is that coming?
Underground, it's all exploding, and Joker was like, wow, this is the only chance we had out of here, and now we're done. And then she just puffs away, and then they both live somehow, and Batman's the one who has to stay in there, exploding, and then falls down into the sewer. That was the only part of the movie where I was like, okay, come on, what the heck was that? That was a little lazy there. Like,
it gets very, when you introduce something like that to a plot, it gives you an opportunity to Deus Ex Machina the shit out of your character. And that's exactly what they did. They pulled a ripcord and got to the closing credits, right? And this is a movie I like. I'll be super clear about that. And we do this on our show all the time. We rip apart these cartoons, the Star Wars cartoons, but we love them, right?
Right.
But this is, like, the difference between, like, a good movie and a great movie is these differences, right? There's when she starts transporting around in clouds of smoke, I'm like, all right, like you running out of budget or something. like what's the real problem? You had to stick to a 75-minute runtime.
Right.
Yeah.
Something like that. But I really liked it, so I'll give it an 8.
No, yeah, and I almost do agree that this movie almost is better if she does die there. I don't think it's necessarily like the. I don't know. It almost feels like it was kind of just like don't worry, we didn't kill her, but like whenever she's on that boat at the end, and
dude, and then Bruce would have been way more tormented because of it too. He would have, like through an actual death instead of him realizing at the end, like, oh, she's alive. I'll never see her again probably, but she's out there. He still has that thought, but like if she dies, then he's like, maybe I'm not meant to be happy. Maybe my parents, maybe all of this is right. Maybe I shouldn't have done any of this from the start and all that. Like, yeah, I don't know. I guess just giving her an easy out. I don't know if that was to continue like her character later on if they wanted to, and whatever. If they just wanted to leave it wide open for that, but I don't know. I agree. I think if she does die there, it strengthens the story actually.
Or at least they left it. If they left it as if she had died, rather than
or ambiguous. Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think both could have been beneficial for sure. But all right, so you gave it an 8 for an enjoyment. Well, what are we feeling, guys? What Joe, Tavarus, how you sitting?
Well, that is what we gave Batman Returns for enjoyment, and that's the highest rated Batman that we have so far for enjoyment.
I was here. I was somewhere between an 8.5 and a 9.
I think I enjoyed a little more than the Batman Returns. A 9 would be pretty high though. That's like 9 is insane for enjoyment.
Mine was. My gut was 8.5, like straight.
I think that's where I'm about to. 9 seems way too high, but 8, yeah. I think the bump is good.
And like I am a little blinded by nostalgia with this movie, but I think I tried to remove myself a lot from that when I was watching it with this podcast in mind, and I still found myself thoroughly enjoying it on a level that I hadn't in a I just didn't appreciate the Michael Keaton Batman movies on the level that this did, mostly because, I mean, this is the version of the character I fell in love with. Like when I was little, Batman was the animated Batman. Like Michael Keaton was actually the least familiar Batman to me when I was a young guy. Like I even watched the George Clooney Batman was more familiar to me. That was a little closer to my time, but still, This is the Batman for me.
By the time I saw George Clooney Batman, I was like, George Clooney's not Batman. You're not.
That's George Clooney. Don't you fucking lie to me.
He's supposed to be robbing casinos. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
once again, showing my age, but George Clooney is an ER doctor to me.
Mm. Mm.
Goodness. Yes. I forgot about that.
Oh man. But all right, we came down at an 8.5 for an enjoyment, and that'll take us to the genre rating. And this one, since they're all superhero genre, we kind of try to break it up a little bit more. And I think that I don't really know where to take this one
Does
beyond.
animated work into the genre? Like, are we judging it on how well of an animated movie it was, or
I
just
think
the
it can be
drama?
considered, especially considering the animation itself has to be considered as a part of the genre. I think, like if
I guess it's
if a
like
movie
the
is
camera
poorly
work. It's the same thing. The camera
Yeah.
work, the lighting, it's all the same, but just in different brush strokes.
Yeah.
So okay, I mean, I think like for a Batman, I mean, it has inspirations from Scooby Doo, so obviously it can't be too far from a 10. But
10's across the board for anything Scooby Doo related.
But no, I mean, like, actually, the villain story was amazing. That's a thing that a lot of these movies have been struggling with, is landing on the villain side of it. The hero is known, and you're like, yeah, you're in for the hero. That's what you buy the ticket for. But the villain side of the story is kind of where they have to hit home, and that's what they have to write and come up with. And a lot of them, it's kind of been weak. But here we got like 3 villain stories almost. Even kind of if you want to break like the characters apart. So I mean, I think it did really, really well for the genre, and it was animated beautifully. I mean, I think I'm around an 8.5 again, if not a 9.
Yeah,
maybe even higher.
I'm leaning 9. How about you, Matt? How you feeling about this genre wise?
Yeah, I'm not sure how you want me to interpret this. Something like Batman the Animated Series defines a genre, right? It becomes the archetype that everybody chases, just from the camera work and the art style, and like it's beyond noir. It's better noir than noir, right?
Yep.
So it's in style, the Art Deco style. I have issues with things that happened in the movie, but not from an art perspective or from from a genre perspective. So it's tough because this is the thing people are trying to rip off for the past 20 years, right? People want their shit to look like this. You don't get like what's the movie, The 300 or Sin City, if you don't have something like this, right? This is the start of all of that genre kind of stuff. So
okay,
there might not be a super clear line between all of those movies and this animation, but look at people's resumes. Like people that worked in these Warner Brothers cartoon things ended up going off to do those interesting film projects later, and playing with overlaying animation and overlaying CGI with humans, modulating humans with CGI and things. That all of those people came from this group. So as far as like the genre is concerned, they nail the Art Deco, they nail the Batman, they nail the animation style, and everyone's been ripping them off. So
hey, you're selling me on a 10 right now.
I think I'm sold actually. Because I was trying to find something that I actually have a gripe with about the genre, and I don't think I can actually come up with anything.
As soon as Matt brought up that it is like Batman in the animated series is genre defining, it immediately I remember that's what we used to base everything off of.
Yeah. That is what a 10 is. Yeah. I think I was just thinking of the critical. Like I was combining kind of critic. It was more of a critical genre outlook that I was kind of having at first, but no, yeah, just. I mean,
there's close to nothing like it before it came out. The closest thing would be like Dick Tracy, and Dick Tracy sucks. That movie's fucking terrible. And it's the closest thing that came to it. It like this art style redefines Batman. How hard you have to go at something to redefine a cultural icon 50 years into the lifespan of that icon, and have everybody agree this is the reset for this, right?
Yes,
that's why
this
I
is
say
the quintessential. This is the quintessential version of the character. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. That is redefining. That is genre defining. It's a 10 out of 10 right there. And I think that kind of plays into our next rating, the adaptation. Matt, how familiar were you with Batman comics prior to this movie?
I read very few Batman comics as a kid. I read the Year 2 comics coming into here, and I knew Batman Year 1 from other things. And I made, to tie it back to Star Wars, I was on a Star Wars comic book podcast several years ago, and I said that the Vader series was Vader Year 1. Because it was, and Soul said that he had modeled it after Batman Year 1. And so I'm vaguely familiar with it. I don't think I'm authoritative on Batman canon and things like that. I know that they considered putting the Reaper in this and decided against it, and tried to bring it back later and decided against it. And so I sort of in this context, I think continuity and interpretation are up for debate.
Right.
Much more so than it doesn't have to be a faithful adaptation, in my opinion. I think the story that they came up with is really nice and good. And since I have such strong affection for the writer, I'm glad that he wasn't yoked to the Reaper story.
I am so glad that they didn't model this after Year 2 incredibly deeply. You know, obviously the Phantasm is inspired by the Reaper, and Andrea Beaumont's inspired by Rachel Caspian and stuff, but they're certainly not the same characters. They take their own direction with it. And that's kind of why when we come to our adaptation rating, we like to base it off the spirit of the comics, the spirit of the character they were presenting to us. And as far as Batman is concerned, I don't, like I said, this is a defining version of Batman. And when I read Batman comics prior to it, especially in the years directly prior to it from the late 80s, early 90s, you can tell they were, and shit, even early Batman and Detective Comics stuff, arguably more. There's a obvious influence over this movie. And I think, adaptation wise, we might be looking at another one of the best, one of the perfects.
Yeah, because I mean, when we talk about adaptation, a lot of times we say even if it's not completely faithful, it better be good. If you're taking something that's not, you're making it up on your own and you're creating something, like, it better be good and it better work out better than the comic story worked out, or else then what's the point? Or what do you don't have the better story on your hands.
Right.
I didn't really like that they put that floating Martian, that cracked wise in his ear that only he could see. I didn't really get it. That's a reference to Flintstones. Sorry.
Oh. All right, but adaptation wise, how you feeling, Joe? How you feeling?
I mean, this is like, it's kind of, in a weird way, this is what others are based off of now. So, like, if we're saying that this changed the character of Batman so much that, like, every Batman before it was just not even close to as credible as this one, then, like, how can you, I guess, as far as Batman goes, it's, like, perfect. So I guess you have to look at the other aspects of the adaptation of, like, Gotham and you notice how they brought to life everything else. And
it's damn good, man. Gotham's 100%, Jim Gordon's 100%, Alfred's 100%. Like, I'm going 10 out of 10 adaptation score on it for me as well. I think it brings to life the spirit of the character in a way that I think it was always meant to. Batman and Batman Returns, my premier problem with it is that it doesn't grapple with the moral of Batman at all, and this absolutely does at multiple points, and it actually makes a point to be like, yo, Batman doesn't kill people, whereas in Batman and Batman Returns, he was going around offing motherfuckers left and right. Just, let me strap a bomb to your chest and throw you in
this bomb, and then it's like, oh, it might be a cute little grenade or something that he could escape from. And the whole factory explodes afterwards after he leaves, and it's like, yeah, that dude is definitely not existing anymore. That's okay.
Batman has died.
It happened off screen, so Batman didn't do it. You know, he caused him to die in that way, sure, but it wasn't directly Batman that did it. You know, it was the bomb that killed him.
There are no witnesses
obviously.
to crime, therefore, by law, he cannot
exactly. Yes.
There you have it, folks. But that does make it another really good rating there. And then our last one is critical. This is all things considered: writing, direction, voice acting, art style, all things considered here. And we're going to start with Matt. How you feeling about this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is a 9 for me. I have my little quibbles with it. The other scene that was sort of a laugh out loud moment for me, which would prevent it from being perfect, is is when he's in the construction site and he sends the cape on the sawhorse up toward the helicopter, and all of the cops just open fire with automatic weapons straight up into the air, and like you're in a city, guys. Like, what?
Come on now. What are we? Well, and also the fact that like the people in the helicopter had their sights on him like the whole time. And he's just like, let me take off the mask and cowl here, send it up this line I've got going towards you. Maybe you see it, maybe you don't. And they don't see it. They just keep shooting.
Right. So there's definitely elements of like willing suspension of disbelief there. And it's, like I said, it's fantastic realism or whatever level you want to give it. But there's just a couple moments where it's like you could have done that so much more effectively and not just been a shooting gallery scene. And that kind of stuff, it prevents it from being perfect, but it doesn't prevent it from being great.
Yeah. I get you. Yeah, 100%. And that would round your score out to a even 9 out of 10. You're giving this a good 90% on the old tomato meter there, Matt. And we're not going to be too far off from that, if I had to guess so myself. It's a damn good flick. It's personally one of the more well done movies on our journey so far. Obviously, our top one right now is Superman at an 8 out of 10. But I'm right there. You know, like I'm right there, if not higher.
I'm at 9 as well. I think all things considered, the critical perspective of this movie is still overshadowed by the legacy of what happened in the movie, which is, you know, it's a strong representation, I think, from the movie itself. What do you say as a critic? Like, what do you say as a critic that's not just a thing that you wouldn't like about most iterations of Batman?
I couldn't tell you mostly the stuff I was saying about adaptation. If you're not treating the character with the respect he deserves, and I think this does that it does it better than anything that came before it. I'll tell you that for sure. The art style, I think the only thing art-wise that gives this a run for its money is Batman Returns, really, and even that I don't think was as visually stimulating as this was, as far as the artistic style is concerned. I think that the performances are fucking phenomenal across the board. I think, you get Joker versus Batman in a movie. You get a whole other villain that is more prominent throughout the entire flick, and it's working for it. Joe, how you feeling?
I don't know if I'm at like an 8.5. I think 8.5 is the floor for me. It's better than Superman. To me, this is better made. The story is so much. It's insane that like we're even comparing it to Superman, a movie that the runtime of that is what, 2 hours and I don't know, very long.
Twice this length, probably.
Twice the length, but the same impact of a story, all, you know, in that short amount. And I don't know, I think it's that's the thing is Superman, you can kind of look at it as a cheesy movie. At the end of the day, it's very campy, it's very, you know, and we love it for that. This is like taken seriously and good, and it's shorter. I don't know, like it's kind of nuts that this, like, I did not expect this to be the front running movie of the show, like coming into this. I had no idea that I would like this as much as I did, but I think I'm at like an 8.75 or a 9 for a critic.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I think since your gut took you floor 8.5, Tavarus's took him straight up 9. I'll go ahead and split the difference between you and throw that 7.5 at it, and we'll just we'll come to a nice groovy conclusion there, and it would round our score out to a 9.3, a 93%, whereas
Doesn't
Superman came
quite
to a
beat
94.
Superman. Wow. Okay. Yeah, Superman and Mask of Phantasm both got a 10 out of 10 in adaptation and genre. But Superman got a 9.5 enjoyment.
It's just one of my favorite movies to watch ever.
It was. I don't know. It made it, and that's the thing is that like in Superman, it made you feel good. You know, you had those good heartwarming moments where you're like, I feel good. It's Superman. It's a happy moment. Where this, it's like, I mean, I'm not necessarily feeling happy, but I'm not mad because of it. I'm not like mad that I'm being emotional. Like obviously that, you know, it's a way different movie. But I think, I don't know, it's still a 9.3, which is phenomenal.
What did Superman get in your guys' rating?
It came to a
9.38,
so
or a
so
9.4
like a little bit,
on average.
like a 0.1 below, or a 0.1 above Mask of Phantasm. It barely beat it.
Does it change anybody's rating if you realize that the scene where Batman is on the truck is a shot-for-shot quote of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark?
It actually does. I'm going to go 10 out of 10 across the board. I fucking love Raiders of the Lost Ark, and now that you point that out to me, I'm like, holy shit, you're 100% right. That's fucking crazy.
It's intentional.
Wow.
They've discussed it, so as doing it intentionally.
Hey, you know what? Fuck it. Bump that up to a 9 out of 10 critically.
Honestly, looking at it, the thing is that I like this movie more than Superman 1. I'll say it like straight up. If I'm going to pick a movie that I would rather watch, I'd rather watch Mask of Phantasm than Superman.
I haven't seen Superman in 8 years, but I would definitely pick Mask.
I think critically it's fine at an 8.75. I think enjoyment it deserves like an 8.75 or a 9. There is where the bump deserves to be.
Hey, I'm down for whatever, honey. You just lead the way.
Well, let me see. Let's see if we give enjoyment a 9, it bumps it to a 9.44, which is just that little bit above Superman.
Yeah, it would still round
barely
out to a 94%.
Technically tied, which maybe I actually like better because they're different they're better for different reasons. One, I'm very happy and I'll watch it whenever I want to have a feel good movie. But then if it's like a Halloween night and I want to be, freaking all Batman and noir-esque, then yeah, I'm putting on Mask of Phantasm. So
it's rainy outside. I'm feeling moody. Let me throw on Mask of Phantasm real quick. No, I'm 100% with you, and that ultimately does bring it to a 94% as well, slightly above the Superman 1 score, and I do feel better about that now. I do feel better about that. But any parting thoughts here for Mask of the Phantasm?
I think I got it. I think for me, yeah.
Glad I rewatched it though. I have no memory of it, although I thought I did.
Yeah, I guess my general advice to everybody is don't sleep on animation.
Never.
Some of the best stuff out there is animated. And I don't know if you can see my posters in the background. That's the Clone Wars Tartakovsky poster. That's Star Wars Visions over there, which I have mixed feelings about. And then that's Phantom Menace, but it's the Clone Wars poster.
Yeah, as far as Star Wars animation goes, Clone Wars Season 7 is like my benchmark for a lot of animated shows to see if it stacks up well to something I know is good, and I know I enjoyed that immediately off first watch.
Yeah, when Star Wars, when the Mortis arc came out, and I was like, oh, you can do anything you want in animation, Star Wars animation, and get away with it because they made a Wizard of Oz story where they fall asleep and then wake up, and did they go or did they not go into?
They don't remember.
The Fildor, and see all those Force deities. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they saw it or not, because it's something that they all experience. Anyway, I won't rant about Star Wars forever, but just don't sleep on animation, everybody, and seek out that stuff too, because it's art. It's art, and
Absolutely.
some of the best films in the world are animated.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt. And with that, we will conclude this episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. If you would, head to patreon.com/pennybloom-pod, where you'll find over 50 hours of exclusive content, including all sorts of comic book pull lists weekly, Star Wars book reviews, all sorts of them. A bunch of content over there. It'll cost you $3 a month, and all that money is super helpful in making sure I can put this podcast on. It costs me money, and I don't make any off of it, so it would be huge if you could go help out over there. If you would, if it still exists, we're obviously recording way in advance, and it's not looking good. To Twitter, follow at PennyBloomPod. Follow on Instagram at PennyBloomPodcast. We're currently doing a Game of Thrones rewatch. Winter is blooming. Hard to say exactly where we'll be at come the time of this podcast release, but we are doing it every Monday. It's there for you. Come back next week, where we'll be joined by a longtime best friend of mine for nearly 15 years, Michael Muehlberger, will be joining us for Batman Forever. Very excited for that. Cannot wait for that conversation. Another Batman flick. We're on a run right now. Batman 89, Batman Returns, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, and that's a stretch of 5 weeks where it's nothing but Batman, and that's frankly, I'm loving it. All right, time for some sign-offs. Matt, you want to give us one last plug for where we can get at you, or where you can find your podcast?
Sure. We release our podcast on all the regular podcast apps. You can search Yub Cast on any of those things, or we're at yubcast.com, where we post everything, and sometimes I write there about things that bother me in the Star Wars world as well. I'm on Twitter, if that still exists, in March, at Yubcast, and we have a Facebook page that I don't update, and an Instagram account that I don't use, but I probably have to start now.
I don't have another plan, man. Twitter was kind of it for me. I'm like, I guess I got to do Facebook now. Mm-hmm. I guess
something will replace. Something will happen. It'll all equal out somewhere.
Honestly, I got very upset because I was like, I'm finally getting good at one of these social media platforms, and then this jackass has to blow it up in front of me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, man. I've been like, I'm finally interacting with people. We've had this Twitter for like 3 years, and we've had 50 followers on it for like 2 of them. But in this last year, we've gained like 200, and like I've been more interactive with people. I've been having so much fun there, creating little communities and stuff. And then it's like, this might not exist tomorrow.
This is my exact Twitter story. We got our Twitter account almost 5 years ago. We had 60 followers until about 18 months ago, and now we're over 400, right? And it's growing, and people are interacting. People are tagging me. They're starting to use the hashtag Star Wars Animation, right? And like Wikipedia retweeted me the other day, and like Star Wars replied, the Star Wars official account replied to one of our posts about Clone Wars, and I'm like, this is happening, right? And now it's like, nope, it's not going to be here in a couple months because this guy's going to go bankrupt.
Nice to know that a billionaire can just decide to have fun one day and accidentally destroy an entire social media company. So, things can just happen. I guess he's trying to save the world in other aspects, but man, just leave it alone. Just keep doing that stuff.
Musk tweets out, I bet I won't buy Twitter for $44 billion.
Just insane. But thank you so much, Matt, again for being here. It was such a pleasure to have you. Hope to have you back for maybe a live action movie, maybe some more animation in the future. Not as many theatrical releases on the animated side of things, but who knows? Maybe we start branching into a little bit more of that DCAU eventually, and maybe we can have you back. But thank you so much for joining us.
No, it was a lot of fun, and if you ever want to talk Star Wars, that's really my bailiwick. So,
and we talk some Star Wars, so we'll see about it for sure. We'll see about it.
This dome in my background is my 1-to-1 replica build of R2.
Oh, I have plans to do that too. I just don't have the materials and time yet. Oh, I need to have a steady career and actual job first to really go into that. I can't wait to do that one day though. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a pandemic project for me that is still ongoing. It takes years to build them, but I think the kids and I can finish them this winter.
Wonderful.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Thank
No,
you. Thank you for
absolutely
having me.
love
It
it.
was a lot of
Absolutely
fun.
love it.
No
No,
problem.
thank you so much. So happy to have you. Thank you, Joseph George, for being here. Shout out to you, buddy.
Oh yeah. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you. And thank you, the magnificent Tavarus Pennington.
Of course, another great one in the books.
Another great one in the books. I was Colton Robertson, and remember, peace, love, and bloom, and rest in peace, Kevin Conroy.